Whether you're building a learning module from scratch or trying to fix a program that just isn't landing, there is this awesome approach that will help you create learning experiences that stick. Of course, I'm talking about design thinking. Hello and welcome to the L&D Academy's channel. I'm Irina, your go-to learning and development nerd, and today we're diving into the 5 stages of design thinking. And to illustrate how it works, I'll show you how to use this approach to build a leadership program from scratch. First, let's get the basics out of the way. Design thinking is a creative, human-centered approach to problem solving. It doesn't require fancy tools or a design background. What it does require is curiosity, empathy, and willingness to learn. There are 5 non-linear stages in the design thinking process: empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. When I say non-linear, I mean that you don't have to follow them in a strict order. You can jump back and forth, revisit earlier steps, or even run a few at the same time, depending on what you're learning along the way. The first couple of stages have to do with understanding our users or learners in the case of L&D. Then we move on to exploring possible options until we finally materialize a product or service. In our case, a learning module, a workshop, or a program. All right, let's grab a beverage of your choice and see how each stage works. Step 1, empathize. Before you build anything, you need to understand who you're building it for and why. Let's say that you've been asked to develop a leadership program for new managers. Sounds clear enough, right? But before jumping into designing amazing presentations and handouts, take a pause. What's really going on? This is the very first question you need to find an answer to. Here's some tips. Start with listening and observing. What are people saying about their managers? What are the managers in charge of, and what's out of their control? Talk to new managers. What challenges are they facing both in their day-to-day and long-term? Keep in mind that not every problem will be a learning problem. Also, shadow a few people in their daily work. This may be tricky, but can be crucial. Ask others, like their team members, peers, and line managers, what's working and what's not. This kind of feedback can be eye-opening both for you and the new managers. If you're not sure how to approach these conversations, here's some questions that you can ask. What surprised you most about becoming a manager? When do you feel most unsure in your role? What support do you wish you had in your first few months? Push back gently. Not everything you see and hear will be objective. If someone says they just need a training on feedback, ask, how do you know that's the main challenge? Or what's happening now when they try to give feedback? Go beyond the symptom. You might find that the real issue isn't feedback skills, but lack of confidence, unclear expectations, or fear of upsetting the team. This is where pushing back can come in handy. Step 2, define. Now that you've gathered insights, it's time to define the problem. This is where you sort through the noise and find a clear focus. Instead of, we need to teach new managers how to lead, try, new managers struggle to have honest performance conversations because they fear damaging relationships. The key to getting these is to drill down. Here's how you do this. Look for patterns in the interviews, cluster related challenges, and identify what's most painful and most common. How to know you're on the right track? Well, when you define the problem clearly, solutions become obvious, or at least easier to spot. Let's say that during the empathy stage, you uncover that new managers are struggling with team motivation. It's tempting to define the problem as managers need to learn how to motivate their teams, but that is too broad. So you dig deeper. From all the research you've done in the previous step, you start to see some patterns, like they aren't setting clear goals, they avoid giving feedback, be that positive or negative. Their teams feel unsure about priorities. This allows you to reframe the problem as new managers lack the skills and confidence to set clear expectations and give consistent feedback, which leads to low team motivation. That's how you know you're on the right track, when your problem statement contains some possible solutions. For example, you now know that you need to include a feedback framework that they can use in one-on-ones, some role-play practices for setting expectations, and maybe even a short video series featuring experienced managers sharing what worked for them. You can always revert back if needed. If your definition is too broad or vague, go back to your empathy notes. Ask, what are they really trying to do and what's getting in the way? Step 3, Ideate. Now comes the fun part, brainstorming. This isn't about finding one solution, it's about finding many, or as many as possible anyways. One thing to do here is to involve others. Pull in stakeholders, a few learners, maybe even a facilitator or two. Set a timer and go wide with ideas. The more, the better. This isn't about finding the right one, but getting as many of them out in the open as possible. Prompt with how might we? For example, how might we help new managers feel more confident giving tough feedback? Or how might we simulate tricky team situations, but in a safe environment? Don't be afraid to push the team. If the first 10 ideas feel too safe, ask, what's the weirdest way that we could solve this? That's where the gold often is. For example, instead of a regular role play in a classroom, why not set up a custom AI chat where managers can practice giving feedback to a virtual team member with attitude problems or low performance? Or a podcast series where longtime leaders share mistakes they have made as new managers back in the day. Step 4, prototype. Some people might be tempted to build a full course at this point. Don't. Pick one idea from the ideation stage and create a rough version. A pilot session, a mock-up, a quick video, even a mural board. The goal isn't perfection, it's learning, fast. Let's say that you choose the idea of a virtual team member chatbot, a custom AI scenario built with ChatGPT, where managers can practice giving feedback to a difficult employee. Start scrappy. Use an AI tool to create a character. Let's call her Tina. Tina is underperforming and defensive when questioned. Give the new managers a simple prompt. Start a conversation with Tina about her recent missed deadlines. Let them type their message and have the AI tool respond in character. Observe the results. There are some things you want to watch out for here. For example, are learners engaging with it or freezing up? Do they know what to say or when to ask for help? Are they reflecting on what has worked and what didn't? And of course, did Tina perform as expected, or do you need to adjust her parameters? To make sure you're capturing everything, ask your learners to reflect. After your conversation with Tina, jot down what felt easy, what was tricky, and what you do differently in a real conversation. Remember, real feedback is more important than perfect delivery. This kind of lo-fi prototype will give you more insights than a fully developed e-learning module or classroom session ever could. And it's fast to tweak if you need it. One more thing to remember is that if it flops, that's not really a failure, that's data. You just saved yourself tons of time and money by learning quickly. Now, as I mentioned earlier, design thinking isn't a linear process, and that means that at this point, you may decide that you need more data, or that the problem that you had defined isn't quite specific or accurate, or that your idea simply cannot be scaled up or down. Don't worry, that's why you have the ideation stage, to throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. Stage 5, test. Once you have run your prototype past the users, gather feedback, not just surveys, real conversations with real learners. In our example with a leadership development program, ask the participants what was useful, what didn't land, or what will you actually use going forward. Look for patterns again. Did they apply what they learned, and did it stick? Make some conclusions, but keep iterating. Maybe the virtual team member idea worked, but needs stronger kickoff training. Or maybe the podcast idea tested better in parallel. You're building your programs with learners, not just for them. And testing is not the end, it's still just part of the cycle. Design thinking gives learning professionals a fresh lens. Instead of what should we teach, the better question is, what do our learners really need? It's not about being a designer. It's about being deeply learner-focused, open to trying new things, and brave enough to test ideas before scaling them. So how do you start? Small. Try just the empathize and define stages on your next project, or run a low-stakes ideation session with your team. With practice, this approach will transform how you design learning and how learners experience it. Because when learning starts with people, it actually works for people. See you in the next video.